Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Hot as Hell, the podcast with Chrissie. This is where we have the difficult conversations around body, business and mindset to show you that you can live a hot as hell life in perimenopause and beyond. In this first episode, I am talking to Lucy, who is one of my friends. I've known her for about a year. She is also a coach. She is mum to a toddler, and last year she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Today we have a really raw conversation about what that meant for her, how she felt, how it's changed her, how it affected her in her work as a mother, as a woman. I really hope that you take a lot from this conversation, and thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to the brand new Hot as Hell podcast with Chrissie. I am so excited to be here with you on my brand new podcast, and I have a guest because I'm just bringing you all the brilliance from the beginning of this very podcast. I am so privileged to have the lovely, and I'm going to say this really slowly because we just had a conversation about it, the lovely Lucy Buglass. Did I say it right?
Yes, spot on. Loved it.
Okay. The lovely Lucy is here with me. Lovely Lucy, tell us who you are, what you do, and how we know each other.
Yeah, so I'm Lucy. I'm 41, soon to be 42. I am a single mum to a lovely little boy, and I am an online coach. And that is actually how Chrissy and I know each other because Chrissy has been my coach for, I think, coming up to a year,
It
hasn't it? It'll
is.
be a year in the summer.
Yeah.
And I help busy mums to small children feel fitter, stronger, and more energized. And I love what I do.
Yeah. Amazing. It's amazing. And yeah, so we've known each other for a year. And a couple of weeks back, we were having a conversation, and I said to Lucy, I'm rebranding my podcast. We're going to be having difficult conversations. I want you to be one of the first guests on my new podcast because your story is incredible. So let's just go straight in. Why have I invited you?
Well, since the 12th of March 2026, I can say that I am a breast cancer survivor.
Yay!
And I said to Chrissy, I was like, I'm probably just going to cry loads this podcast. And she was like, that's fine. But yeah, it's like, I'm happy to have the difficult conversation. It's such an important conversation to have. And I shared a lot of it on my Instagram, but it's very different. And I feel very vulnerable. I think that's why the tears are, because on my Instagram, I control the narrative. I can talk about it when I want, and I cannot talk about it when I want. I can say, I can, start and say how much I'm comfortable with, and then I can stop. But I've agreed to be asked questions. And so I think that's why I'm feeling a little bit more exposed and quite emotional, but also really, really happy to have the conversation and really delighted to be on your podcast. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. And this is something that is really close to my heart. I'm not going to talk about my connection to it, that's for another time. But do you want to tell us, give us the timeline? That might be a great place to start. Give us the timeline, because I remember getting that message from you. Yeah, give us the timeline, and
Yeah.
then we'll go into these questions, which are kind of a bit confronting, aren't they?
Yeah. They were good questions though. They were very thought-provoking. So I found a lump in September and I'm used to going, so I'm very good at going to the doctor. I'm very good at checking and I'm very good at going to the doctor. And I actually think it's lucky that I have found so many kind of hormonal cysts and lumps and bumps over the years because I'm just used to going. I'll just go and it's
Mm.
like, it's not a big deal. I went to the doctor in September, and she said, oh, it's probably nothing. And then, they will always send you for a biopsy. Anyway, whether it was the doctor or the team at the hospital, no one seemed particularly alarmed because the lump was very small. And then it was, I think, like the 26th of October. So a few weeks after, I got called into the hospital, and I didn't really understand. I didn't understand why they were phoning me. I was like, well, what could it possibly be? Because I genuinely didn't think it was anything. And yeah, I went into the room and sat down, and they said, unfortunately, it is cancer. And I was like, fuck. It felt like being in a simulation because you know it's possible for these things to happen to you, but then you at the same time you're thinking, is this my life? Is this happening to me right now? So yeah, I got diagnosed in the October, and there was a couple of not complicating factors, but there was a couple of things that happened that prolonged the full sort of diagnosis process. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But I finally had my surgery. So I needed a lumpectomy at the beginning of December. And then, you have to heal for about 5 weeks. I was then put on tamoxifen, which is our estrogen suppressant. And I'm on that for the next at least 5 years, maybe 10. Started that in January. And then I was scheduled, I had my radiotherapy planning meeting in February. And then I had 9 consecutive days, sort of Monday to Friday, of radiotherapy, starting on March 1st and finishing on Thursday, the 12th.
Okay. And so on to tamoxifen. So welcome to menopause.
Oh my God, the brain fog I would say it's hilarious, but it's not. It's fucking annoying. I just make
It's
stupid,
infuriating.
I make stupid mistakes all the time. Although I did like your post because you were like, brain fog is a great get out clause. Because I can be like, sorry, girls, it's a tamoxifen.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is it though, or have I just forgotten? It's really annoying. And hot flushes are kind of a wild ride.
Yeah. See, I don't often get flushes. Mine were night sweats.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds more annoying, I think.
Yeah, night sweats. And do you already take creatine?
Yes.
Okay, because I can tell when I've forgotten my creatine with my brain fog.
That is amazing, really.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Gosh.
it is so much. I like I can speak even less.
Well, because mine's really well, because my wee boy's only 2, and luckily his sleep is a lot better. But it didn't really improve until about 6 months ago. And if I had had to contend with tamoxifen and sleep deprivation, I just don't think I would have had any words.
Would have just been
Oh.
a gibbering
Yeah,
mess. But
totally. But I have to say, the kindness and compassion of other people, of my clients, of other women, it's just like they know what to say to make me feel better. And
yeah,
they'll say, "Oh God, I do that all the time," or "Oh,
yeah,
don't worry, I've done that too." And it's just, I don't know. I felt very held by, obviously, like my friends and my family, but I felt very held by the women who I teach in my gym and my army of amazing online clients because
yeah.
I've taken a lot of strength from them, and you and everyone on AFM. I really have taken a lot of strength from the wonderful support that I've received from, other women. It's been wonderful.
Amazing. Well done.
Mm.
I'm so proud of you. And it's been just I've loved being in your world anyway, but yeah, I just loved when I got a message from you like, I'm coming back. I was like,
Let's
yeah.
go. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
it felt good to be out the other side of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's get into some of these questions
All
then.
right.
All right. So, everyone talks about being strong during cancer, but what does that actually look like on the days you didn't feel strong at all?
And I had lots of those days. And I think because on Instagram, I would only show up when I felt strong enough to. I think people might have a slightly skewed, you never know what's happening behind closed doors. So I think people have a slightly skewed idea of what it was actually like because the days they were absolutely horrific. It was horrific.
Mm,
And the fear and the out of controlness and the overwhelm was just almost unbearable at times. And when you're having a day like that, you're basically being strong is doing anything but not give up. And that can look like anything, it doesn't matter. So, there was a point in my treat sort of the process because you get an initial diagnosis, but that's not you don't know if that's 100% everything that's going on in your body because you get initial diagnosis and then you have a bunch of tests,
Mm.
including an MRI. And so I went for these tests. So I'd already been diagnosed. I went for these tests, and the MRI identified an additional area of inflamed tissue, whatever that meant. I was like, is that code for more cancer and you're just not telling me? And so I had to have that biopsied, and I had to wait a week for those biopsy results to come back. That was the most horrific week of my life. And on that was really when I didn't feel strong because I was at my limit anyway. And then I thought, well, I've got more cancer, or I'm going to have a mastectomy. Like that thought really upset me. And I was facing the very real possibility that this was going to be a lot worse than I had initially anticipated and I'd initially been told. So on that weekend, so I co-parent, so I was grateful. I'm not usually grateful to be away from my little boy, but I was grateful that weekend that I was by myself because when I'm in turmoil like that, I sometimes find it easier to just keep my world a little bit smaller and just be by myself. And I've become very good during this journey to hold space and sit with very uncomfortable emotions. And I think historically, I've always tried to kind of push the discomfort away. But by doing that, by pushing it away and not confronting the fear or the upset, it makes it bigger and even more scary than it already is. So I'd really encourage anyone to kind of try and have the discipline to sit with their emotions. And I just sat and I cried, and it was a real cathartic
Mm.
cry. And through my, because I it was about 5 months from beginning to end, from diagnosis to completing my treatment. And I had several of those cathartic cries, and I almost not scheduled them in, but like I could kind of tell in myself that I needed to like get it all out. And I would make time to do that. I would make sure that I had the opportunity to do that. So that was quite an important part of my journey. And so so that weekend I sat and cried, and then I'm going to get upset when I talk about this, but anyway, I sat and cried, and then I went and walked up my favorite hill. And that's when I realized that you can be having like the worst day of your life, but there can still be good moments.
Mm.
And it's not all bad.
No.
And it really helps if you can, I call it looking for the glimmers. Like notice the nice little things when you're having a shite
Yeah.
day. Like it really helps. So yeah, and that was a big realization for me. And it's a helpful one, and it's been a helpful one because cancer's taken a lot from me, but it wouldn't be fair if I didn't talk about all that it has also given me. And
Yeah.
it's not all been negative.
No.
And there's been a lot of positives in how I'm far more able to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And for someone who has struggled with anxiety or her whole life, and I used to have to take medication for it, like that's quite something for me. And I also
Mm.
think like just generally in life, like we're either looking far ahead or lamenting on something that's or stuck on something that's happened in the past. And we've got to realize that this moment now is all we have. That's all there is, really. And that is true whether you have had cancer or not.
Yeah.
And even if you've had cancer, it doesn't change. So nothing's different, really. Because if you're here, you have, you're here and that's what matters. And I try and not let my mind wander to, too much to what the future holds because I don't have any control over that.
No, none of us do. And yeah, that living in the this right now. Kids are really good at doing that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
lose the ability to do that. And I
Yeah.
learnt this recently. I don't know how much of an animal lover you are, but you obviously know Henry. And I read that the reason dogs go mad as soon as you come back in the house is because they live so much in the moment. So I could just go out to my car and be 30 seconds. And when I come back in, he's like,
Yeah.
a party, like, because they live right in the moment
Mm.
and their complete joy at seeing you is there in that moment.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovely.
I do think like having my wee boy had definitely helped in lots of ways, and definitely being in the moment. When I'm with him, I definitely felt myself just kind of absorbed in what we were doing. And it was nice because it made me realize that I was kind of going through this diagnosis and I had all this uncertainty, but it was still possible to have times of the day where I would be like, oh, that was about 10 minutes though that I wasn't thinking about having cancer. That was nice.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
good. It makes you
Yeah.
realize that you can kind of be in the moment.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Um, what's been harder for you mentally, the diagnosis, the treatment, or what's coming after?
The hardest bit, I kind of talked on it there, it's the unknowingness of, because you just get a series of letters through the post.
Mm,
You don't know. And I very quickly stopped trying to guess what that next appointment was going to be about because I kept getting it wrong. And that meant that I kept being thrown. So the perfect example was I thought I was going in, I hadn't heard anything about my MRI results. And it's the kind of process that maybe private is different, but I went through NHS. It's the kind of process that if everything's fine, that you don't hear anything. So I had wrongly assumed that everything was fine. So I went to the hospital assuming one thing, but I actually was being told that there was another area that they had to biopsy and I wasn't going to get the results for a week. And I
mm,
think because it was worse because I had made an assumption that it was going sort of it was over here and it ended up being something completely different. And when you are up to your eyeballs with stress anyway, you have no capacity to deal with curveballs.
mm,
So I found the not knowingness of it very difficult. But luckily, that second area, it wasn't nothing. It's a type of cell that has a higher propensity to become cancerous, but it didn't need to be removed. They just treated it with some additional radiotherapy. So it just meant that that was my original treatment plan could carry on.
yeah.
But it was definitely the waiting, the not knowing, and just sort of the ambiguity. And then once, like, I had a meeting, a planning meeting with my oncologist to get ready for radiotherapy, and then he was ill, and I was like, "You're ill. What about me?" And so that that obviously he can't come in to see cancer patients if he's got like, germs and stuff. Like, obviously
Yeah.
I know that, and people are allowed to be ill. But yeah, just and that was another week that I had to wait. And it's just it's torturous. And so really the treatment was fine. The tamoxifen's a bit wild. My recovery, I keep myself very fit and healthy. So the recovery from my surgery was relatively straightforward, A, because they managed to get a clear margin first time. They don't always manage to do that. And B, they got a good sample of my lymph nodes. So
Mm,
they didn't, because a lot of girls have to go and have more surgery to get either more lymph nodes or to clear another margin. And that's more like surgery, general anesthetic. And I think as soon as I had had my treatment plan confirmed, as soon as I knew in my head the rough timeline and pathway, the anxiety and everything kind of dropped and I was able to just get on with it. But I would
mm,
say if anyone is listening and going through a diagnosis, everything, regardless of what your treatment plan is, everything will feel better once you have a level of certainty. Because the unknowingness means that your brain is just going off in a million different
yeah.
directions, and it's very, very hard to not do that. It's natural, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. As humans, we like certainty. We like, and you might think to yourself hearing this, oh, I no, but I don't like boxes, but we do. We like certainty as human
Yes.
beings.
Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, okay, you briefly touched on this in the first question, but you're a mum. You are a boy mum, just like me. How did that influence your experience of cancer in the beautiful and the brutal ways?
So this is a really hard one to answer because your biggest fear is to not be here for your children.
Mm,
And so that went from an idle thought in my head, like all mothers will have that, to just feeling a lot more real.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. But honestly, other than that, that's just something that I have to live with. But like everyone has that fear as a mother. Everyone does. And so that was the brutal part. But the beautiful part is it just makes me realize that nothing else really matters other than my health and that he's happy and healthy. Like I can deal with anything else, anything.
Mm.
And it's just given me clarity on what I want to have in my life, what I want to spend my time doing. I immediately booked several weeks off a holiday to spend with my son, which I've never done before. Obviously,
Mm.
I've only had him for the last 2 years, but in the 6 years that I've run my business, I've been dreadful for taking holiday, and that stops now.
Hmm.
That's it. And the other thing, and I've stopped for a number of reasons, but I've stopped drinking alcohol completely because I hadn't actually appreciated the link between breast cancer and alcohol. Now, alcohol is linked to 1 in 10 breast cancer cases.
Mm.
And if it's just made me realize that no one is getting out of here alive. We are all here for a limited time. So I never ever want to feel shit, and alcohol makes me feel shit the next day. I don't want to waste a single hour feeling shit, especially when I'm with my little boy. I don't want
Yeah.
anything to kind of detract from that. So that is, I'm grateful, if I can say it, to cancer for removing the allure of alcohol from me because I see it very, very differently now. I see it something that I don't want in my life. And I stopped drinking just after my surgery in December. I'm making it sound like I drank a lot. I didn't really. Like when you're a toddler mom, like you can't, and a single parent, like you can't really. But I've stopped drinking completely. And despite being on tamoxifen, I feel fantastic.
Mm.
I really do feel fantastic. My energy is very even. And I just really enjoy life, and like that's life is precious, and I think that's another we just take it for granted, don't we?
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah.
We really do. I'm glad you brought up the alcohol. I've got a podcast coming out about alcohol as well. That's a
Interesting. Oh,
great one.
I'll be listening to that.
But I love this piece around I don't want to do things that make me feel shit. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely. I wrote a post about this the other day. Like, I don't, I don't really drink. It doesn't really bother me. We go to France for 3 weeks in the summer, and I'll have a couple of glasses of wine there because I literally am next to a vineyard
Yeah,
and I
nice.
enjoy the taste.
Yeah.
But not drinking to get drunk because I don't like not sleeping. I don't
No.
like that stuff. And
Mm-mm.
yeah, and what an insight that's given you.
Yeah.
One of the things that you just said there, this isn't a question that was on the list, so I'm going off piste.
Off peak. Love it.
But one of the questions that you said, and I remember this when we started working together, you said, you was terrible at taking time off. Even before you had your son, you were terrible at taking time off. And
Mhm.
we've had conversations about your you time and about using your time better, not just
Yeah.
for business, but because this podcast is about it's about menopause, it's about motherhood, it's about business, it's about life.
Mhm.
Like, did your business disappear when you took some time off?
No. No, it takes, you've got to back yourself a little bit more that it's not going to crumble. You've
Hmm.
really got to back yourself a little bit more. And you've also got to realize that you not taking any time off, there is a very short shelf life on that. And also you need to think about it's not about working harder, it's working smarter and more efficiently.
Yeah.
Because like you'll end up hating what you do.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of my biggest drivers for just making sure I keep my boundaries because when I left
Mm.
corporate, I resented the amount of hours I gave to
Mhm.
corporate organizations that never really gave me anything back. And I never want to resent what I do now because I love it so much.
Yeah. And you saying about boundaries, now you've asked me other questions, and it was I just think like kind of what you've gained from cancer, but better boundaries is something that I 100% have. And it's you saying about doing things that I don't want to do. And I'd be terrible for saying yes to social occasions I didn't really want to go to, but I didn't want to let the person down or I didn't want to appear rude. And now I just say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I
Exactly.
don't put myself out for other people anymore. I don't wear the weight of other people's expectations anymore. And
Oh,
I am so grateful to be free of that because what a fucking waste of time that is.
yeah. Waste of time, waste of energy,
Totally.
waste of muscle power.
Oh, everything. So yeah, boundaries, that's something that I'm better at, and I'm better at it in just like my personal life, my, social situations or whatever it might be. And I'm also better at it with my clients.
Mm,
So, they know that if they text me on the weekend, they're not getting a response until Monday. If they
yeah.
don't submit their check-ins, they're not getting a response until Monday. And I'm a little bit more forthcoming in my, if for my coaching clients, it's like, well, this is a two-way street. It's like your coaching agreement. It's a two-way street. You have to remain coachable. This is, you have to uphold your end of the bargain as well. And I think before I'd be too timid to say stuff like that in case they were like, I don't want to be your client anymore. But I mean,
Yeah.
nobody said that.
No. And this is the thing. We teach other people how to treat us.
Yes.
And as humans, we need boundaries, even if
Mhm.
we feel like we don't. We need boundaries. We need to know what the expectation is.
Because
Yeah.
do you know what? And it's having a wee boy and seeing, well, he has a very strict routine that I know that he needs to then get ready for bed.
Mm.
But like we don't have that. And then he needs boundaries in order to understand how to behave. It's like, well, we also need those.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
We kind
Isn't
of
it?
lose that. We're so focused on it when, when they're children, and then but it's not a child thing, it's a human thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. Right. Hold on. Henry needs to get into the office because he's
Oh,
back.
come on then, Henry. In you come.
You coming in, Henry? You coming in? Good boy. Well done. That's it. Right. Was there a moment when you thought, I don't recognize myself anymore? And how did you start to rebuild that?
It was probably when I was waiting for the results from that second biopsy. And I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. I was like,
Mm.
I can't. I'm done. And I was sitting at my best friend's table on a Sunday morning, and the next day, because I just kept going, I wasn't willing to forgo any income because I was pissed off enough about having cancer as it was. And I was like, well, I'm not losing out on any of my fucking money and my hard-earned cash. So I'm going to keep going to work, keep showing up. And so I was getting my results about 4 o'clock that day, but I had
Mm.
all my like normal classes and clients before
Mm.
that. And so I had to wear the thickest mask I think I've ever worn for that day. But the day before, I was just like, I can't. Like this is too much now. Like I've absolutely reached my limit, and I was in floods of tears at my friend, and she sat and cried with me because my friends really walked this with me. Like I did not
Mm.
walk this alone. And like
Mm.
you and everyone at AFM and clients and the owner of the gym, like everyone, they've just been absolutely amazing. And she sat down next to me and she said, I said, I'm not strong enough to do this. And she said, yes, you are. She
Mm.
said, you can do it. And I did.
Yeah.
And then I got some good news. I ran into a friend at the hospital after I got told I had essentially been told you've only got one area of cancer and not two. And I just thought this was like the best news ever. And so I ran into my friend and I was like laughing and joking with my dad because my dad came to all my appointments with me. And you forget that you get so used to talking about cancer. It's really quite shocking for someone who's not really been on the journey with you to hear it.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, what's going on? I was like, well, I thought I had two areas of cancer, but it's only one. And I'm absolutely delighted. She was like, wait, what? And I was like, no, it's really good news. Anyway, so then I had to like catch her up, but I must have sounded absolutely mental. But yeah, that was a low ebb, a
Mm.
really low ebb. And I think that when you have absolutely reached your rock bottom, the way you rebuild, or the way I rebuilt, was thinking that I have got through 100% of the shittest days I have ever had. I can get through today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just cannot get too far ahead.
No.
It's all about just like bringing it back to the moment.
I love what you said earlier, actually, and it's just reminded me to think about it again. You said there's been times when I've kept my world small,
Hmm.
but I think that applies to so much more than just, who's around you and things like that. It's about
Mm.
keeping, like, let's just think about the next two steps. Let's not
Yeah.
think about the next 20.
Yes. Because it's too much.
Yeah.
And also, I was listening to a podcast with this, like, she's a really good rock climber. And
Mm.
I don't know, she was up some mad wall in Canada, right? And she missed the next sort of like handhold bit. And she fell off the wall, and it was a terrible accident. And it was because she was thinking about something, she was thinking about the one after that. And it made her miss the next step. And it was quite a nice analogy of how you
Mm.
have to concentrate on your next move. That's
Yeah.
all that matters really, because then you can focus on the move after
Yeah.
that kind
And
of
that,
thing.
I think that's, yeah, it's such a great analogy for
Mm,
so much in life. You don't
mm,
have to be going through cancer to feel like that. As business owners, as women, as
hmm
mothers,
hmm
you know, just daily life sometimes can
Yeah.
feel really overwhelming. Like you look at your
Oh,
to-do list and there's 25 things on there. Okay, just
yeah.
think of the one next thing you're going to do. And
Yeah.
that's something I've really had to be learning to do because I'm trying to really slow my life down, simplify my life. And it means taking the big things and chunking them down
hmm
because I just can't
Yeah.
think about the big.
100%. And you only really have to have had the next step figured out.
Yeah.
That's all you really need to focus on. And again, it's the same for me, because I suppose you've got all these big lofty goals, but you need to again just kind of strip it back and keep it smaller and keep it more focused, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What are the things that people say to cancer patients that sound supportive but actually feel completely unhelpful and even painful?
Oh, so there was one of I stopped telling people I had cancer because I couldn't be arsed. I couldn't predict what people would come out and say. And I don't think this is ever from a place of badness. But one person said to me, I said I got cancer, and she went, "Oh no, that's such a worry, especially when you've got such a young child." And I was like, well, yes, dying and leaving my son motherless is my absolute deepest rooted fear. Would you like to start with that? Like,
Oh God, sorry, I'm laughing, but I'm
oh, it was
laughing at the
awful.
way you explain it.
It was awful. And then I'm going to come back to the strong thing that you started with. And then there was another time at Christmas. So I just had my surgery, and I didn't yet know whether the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes. So I didn't know whether I was cancer free. It could have been a lot worse. I had no idea. And I was at a lunch, and this lady came and sat next to me, and I'd not met her before. She's like a family friend, but I'd not met her before. And my mum had obviously been speaking to her, and she sat down and she said, "Oh, I hear you've got cancer. I've got cancer too." And I was like, "Oh, I was actually not even thinking I had cancer." It was one of those moments where you just get jolted, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that I might still have cancer." And then I felt like saying, "I don't want to talk about this right now." Like,
Yeah.
and you're a very nice woman, and you've just had a double mastectomy, so you are well within your rights to talk to me about cancer. But I'm like, I had actually forgotten that I had cancer, and I was having a nice chat with someone else, and it just felt like a little prick in a balloon, and it kind of like
Yeah.
burst my bubble a little bit. So that's
Pissed
not
on
for
your chips. She pissed on
Yes,
your chips.
exactly. Pissed on my chips. I don't know. It was, and I didn't, obviously, I had a chat with her because she was very nice and everything, but it just made me realize I deliberately, not everyone knew I had cancer right away. And that was a deliberate play, because I'd begun telling people, and then I got fed up and stopped because
Mm.
of the weird things that people say. Because I think people panic and don't know what to say, and like, just stuff comes out their mouth. But what I
Yeah.
wanted to pick up on was you had asked at the start about being strong because it's a natural thing when you admire someone for how they've kept going through bloody awful news. It's natural for you to say, "Oh, you're so strong." But I mean, the snipey answer is, "Well, what's my other fucking option? What
Yeah.
is the other option? There isn't one." And I say it, I would say it about people. There's a girl who comes to my strength classes and she's undergoing 12 weeks of chemotherapy for breast cancer. And I just think she's like an absolute warrior and such a strong woman. But then I'm like, but she was just like, well, I just keep going, don't I? Like there's no, what's the other option?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, ultimately there isn't one,
No,
you know?
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
But most people have been amazing. And if people have said something, it's not out of badness, like I said. I think it's just a lack of thought and
Yeah.
consideration that's gone into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about your body because your body's amazing. How did your relationship with your body change through diagnosis, treatment, and, since?
This is a really interesting question, and I had to think about it a little bit. So obviously I am left with physical scars,
Hmm.
but because I've had my baby and it was an emergency C-section, I'm kind of I was used to having like an unblemished body and like I don't have one anymore and I haven't had one for a couple of years. So the physical scars like I don't love it, but it is what it is. And I suppose I used to feel like I kind of took it for granted that I was this like strong because I used to be a competitive athlete when I was younger. I'm like strong, robust, infallible. And it just makes you realize that you're not really any of those things. Like you are just as vulnerable as the next person to getting cancer. So I used to kick the shit out of myself in terms of exercise and training really hard. I was into loads of CrossFit and I did bodybuilding and I was training twice a day and da 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 da. But then on the flip side, I was out getting shit faced at the weekends and just not really looking after myself. Like I was a heavy exerciser, and that was a wee while ago. That was like in my sort of late 20s, early 30s. And now I take such pride in taking the best possible care of my body that I can. And it's something that I actually really enjoy doing. And I think that since stopping drinking, I feel even more like that. My body is something to be nurtured and cared for and not punished with exercise and not punished with restrictive diets. It's to be, I want to look nourished. I want to look well fed. I put something on Instagram the other day. I was like, I want a physique that says she'd be handy in a crisis, you know? Like you want to look like you've
Zombie
got a bit.
apocalypse. Let's go to Lucy's
Yes,
house.
exactly. She'd fight off the zombies, no problem. But yeah, I just like I take great satisfaction in taking really good care of myself. And
Yeah,
that's a shift. But I think
love
that
that.
shift had begun when I was pregnant and how you've got to look after your body when you're pregnant and postnatally, like you've got to kind of look after yourself a little bit better. But this has definitely given it a real shunt into
Yeah,
that direction. And I think that's why I feel so good at the minute,
yeah,
despite the
yeah,
toxic.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
We talked about boundaries. We talked
Mm.
about not having any alcohol. We talked about if you don't want to do something socially, you just say no. We talked about holidays, weekends, stuff like that. Is there anything about else about your priorities, your standards, or your tolerance of BS that has changed or that you no longer accept?
I mean, I don't stand for any bullshit. And I think when you have been to hell and back, and when you have survived some truly testing times, it becomes very easy to. I get a real sense of people's energy now. And I can, without really getting myself involved in with that person at all, and I just mean like in a friendly setting or a social setting, I can very quickly filter out who I gravitate towards and who I'm just going to hold back from.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. I love that.
I just
I
think,
also
go on.
go on.
Oh,
No, go on.
I think the older I get, the more woo I become. And I'm quite open to that now. And I just think when you've got people, I don't know how they're acting or how they're speaking or how they're behaving, I just feel like that is really low vibration stuff.
Yeah.
You are down here somewhere and I am up here. And that's fine. Like you don't bother me. I just feel like I can kind of rise above it all, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the older you get, I think hormones changing, which yours obviously are,
Hmm.
I think we just become a bit more, it's okay. I'm going to go the opposite direction because I
Hmm.
don't need to mix my energy with yours.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like this like thing. It doesn't have to be a confrontation or a
No,
conversation. You can just
swerve.
just take yourself off.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I love being in my 40s.
yeah.
I
Me too.
I love it. And I
Me
realize I'm here
too.
talking about having cancer, but to be honest, cancer has thrown so many things into sharper focus for me. I can honestly say that I don't know if grateful for having cancer is the right word. Obviously, I would rather not have had to go through all that. But would I be the person now and with the priorities and clarity that I have now? I wouldn't.
No, no.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a
Um,
weird thing to be grateful for, but there you go.
I think take it. I
Mm.
think it's a great lesson to a nice reframe.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, you've talked a little bit about this, but what does fear look like for you now? Does it ever fully go away? Does it change shape?
So this is a really good question. And I think the main driver for me stopping drinking alcohol was in order to reduce the health anxiety and the fear of my cancer coming back. Because ultimately, if I look at my life now, so the three big risk factors are being overweight, not being a regular exerciser, and like having alcohol regularly. And so I want to be able to say that if my cancer comes back, I want to be able to say that's really unlucky. I
Mm,
don't ever want to have the thought in my head, oh, I wonder if I just XYZ, or I wonder if I'd not drunk any wine, or I wonder if I'd only drunk once a week, or whatever it was. I don't ever want to have to do those mental gymnastics. I want
mm,
to be able to say, hand on heart, that I have done everything to prevent this disease coming back to me because I don't, I owe it to my son as well as myself. So there is that part. And so I find that because I take really good care of myself and I really try and focus on what I can control and do my best to let go of the rest and not drinking. I found that has really alleviated a lot of the health anxieties that I did have in terms of it coming back.
mm.
But when you have been through something that you've had to look fear into the whites of its eyes, you have the dubious honor of living on the other side of fear. Like, I am scared of nothing. And
Yeah.
I believe, and that is a very powerful position to be in. I believe I spent a lot of my life thinking that I wasn't enough. I
Mm,
spent, and really, it's only really been in the last 2 years that I've not been plagued by those thoughts. I don't think I will ever have that thought in my head again. I
mm.
am more than enough. And the fact that I've had to face my biggest fear and look it in the eye. I back myself to do anything that I put my mind to in this life.
I love that. I love that.
Mm. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And I understand like there's been a lot of there has been a lot of positives that have come out of this experience, but I cannot overstate how horrific and terrifying it was.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I we both talk about this in our businesses, women putting themselves last, and you've just
Mm,
touched on the self-worth side of that.
hmm.
So what did cancer teach you about taking up space, about not putting yourself last. I've heard the holidays, I've heard the boundaries,
Mm.
but how else has it taught you about putting yourself first, or even like how you communicate that with your clients to help them?
I just tell them to be exactly, and again, this doesn't, it sounds like it's kind of like a loud, showy thing, but I tell them to just be exactly who the fuck they are without apology. But again, that doesn't have to be a loud act. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah,
You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be exactly who the fuck you are without apology. You can
yeah.
just do it quietly. You can do it in whatever way feels natural to you, because that's the whole point, you
Yeah.
know? And I say for them, a lot of my girls are now taking the step from going from home workouts into the gym, and they're really, they're nervous. And I say, you have to just go. You have as much right to be there as anybody else.
Yeah.
And be brave and pursue your passions. And when you do that, when you think, oh, I really want to do something, it doesn't have to be just going to the gym. It could be anything. It could be like starting an art class, or it could be, learning how to tap dance. I don't know. But when you pursue your passions kind of unapologetically and wholeheartedly, not only are you doing it for yourself, but you are giving other women the permission to do that too. So you're
Mm.
really doing it for womankind everywhere.
Yeah. And if you've got children,
Mm,
you're teaching them to do it,
100%. I
you
say
know?
that a lot. I say little eyes are always watching, and I say that your children will not become what you tell them to be. They will become what they see.
Yeah.
So, and that is everything. It's not just like your, going to the gym or your habits. It's how you talk to yourself, how you talk to other people, how you conduct yourself, just like how you live every day.
Yeah.
You are being watched,
You
and
are.
you've got such a opportunity to make a positive impact on your children's future and your children's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. So for the woman who's listening, who's in the middle of something really hard right now, what does she actually need to hear from you? Not the Pinterest version, not the shiny version, like the real hot as hell. What does she need to hear?
You are so much stronger and more capable than you have ever given yourself credit for. And what you need to understand is that one day you will come out the other side of this. This is not going to last forever. So one of the most freeing and terrifying realizations is nothing lasts forever. So that means you have to hold on to the good stuff and appreciate and be present for the good stuff. And when things are really, really shit, you just have to weather the storm as best you can. And you just need to put your head down and find a way to keep putting one foot in front of the other and being strong. As I said, like at the beginning, it can look like anything other than giving up on yourself. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what it looks like as long as you don't give up. But I would also say that when you are going through a really testing time, you have to be looking after yourself. You cannot abandon your own needs in a time like that. So you have to be eating properly. You have to be eating your fiber and your protein. You have to be drinking your water. You have to be going outside for a walk every day. If you want to do some workouts, that's fine. You don't have to. I would say the walk outside is the really, really important
Mm.
part. And I would also use that to almost create a structure or little tick boxes that you can kind of make your way through every day to create that structure and lean on that structure, because I found that very, very useful. And creating that structure, like you are in control of all these things, and putting your energy towards focusing on what you can control is going to make you feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Write a list of what you can control.
Yes.
and do more of those things.
Yeah. And she also needs to hold that vision in her head of what her life is going to look like when she is out the other side. And
Yes.
she
Yeah.
really has to hold it and she has to make it real and it has to
Yeah.
be something that she thinks about every day. I would maybe write that on a post-it or something to make it visual somewhere that she can see it and remind herself.
Yeah. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. Lucy, this has been a beautiful conversation.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I can't
Yeah.
believe how long we've been talking.
I know you're like, it'll never be an hour. Well, would you look at
I
that?
I know that you got emotional through that, but I hope that that wasn't like a horrific experience for
No,
you.
no, it wasn't. I really want people to hear the story and I want people to check their boobs, please,
Yeah.
because I caught my cancer at stage 1A. Okay. And the sooner you catch it, the more treatment options you have and the better your prognosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Check your boobs. First of the
Yeah,
month. Check your boobs.
yeah, nice. Put it in your
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah. And this is going to be released on the first of the month. So check your boobs today.
Love it. I'll do a video to show you how to do
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. Right. I'm going to make sure that all of Lucy's links are in the show notes. This has been amazing. I am changed forever for knowing you. I am so truly honored to have you in my life. Thank you for being one of the first guests on my podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.